Everybody talks about Kuroko's basketball, but nobody really gets into the nitty-gritty weeds of things to really break down how crazy the ball on this show was. But that's why you came across this video, and that's why you're now on this channel. We're locked in. You're twin. Congratulations, gang. Kuroko's basketball is one of, if not the best sports anime in the game. And though it stopped airing and, the movies are behind us, it still stands the test of time. You can say that Ippo is one of the greatest, arguably the greatest. You could say Slam Dunk is one of the greatest. You could even say Haikyuu is one of the greatest. But Kuroko's basketball also belongs in that conversation. And today we're going to break down the top 10 abilities that make this show just so different. So go ahead, strap in, grab a snack, grab a bev, like the video, subscribe, and turn on post notifications, and let's get to it. So obviously Kuroko's basketball was realistic in some ways, but absolutely outlandish in others. You had things like the Eagle Eye and other abilities that seemed realistic, and then you had things like misdirection, which is very hard to understand if you haven't actually played basketball, especially at a high level or against somebody that's extremely high level. With that said, this is my personal list of top 10, and in the comments, let me know what you think should be added, or if you would switch the order of anything, because I'm always interested to know. At 10 to start us out, I have Kuroko's Phantom Shot, which was also known as a high-speed pass. Now, it became legendary during the Yosen game against Murasakibara because he was known for blocking literally everybody's shot without fail. As soon as you enter the three-point line, that was his range. And at 6'6", 6'7", he was able to touch anybody and anything that came into his area. This unorthodox shot looks like somebody's lobbing the ball in the air, but every time somebody went to go block it, they were unable to, even when they put their hand in the flight pattern of the ball. But because of the trajectory of the ball and the way it releases from his bottom palm and gets pushed upwards, it looks as though it's a lob pass more than it does an actual shot. Because of this, rather than shooting over his opponent's heads, the ball is released from his chest with minimal arc, resulting in a more floater type of shot. And it gave him that edge that he needed, like I said, against Yosen to close the game out when they needed it most. For a guy who, mind you, previous to adding this shot to his bag, could not shoot anything. It was so impressive because no matter what type of shooter from his Generation of Miracles team ended up working with him on his jumper, he couldn't get anything down. But this is the one. And it's all thanks to Aomine Daiki, the ace of the Generation of Miracles. At number 9, we have something that was so crash out worthy, so just absolutely insane to think about and put into context that everybody thought it was the most broken move, and honestly why most people feel like the show is mildly unrealistic beyond some other themes that occur, and that's misdirection. Now, it's a strategic technique that involves a player making a fake or feigned move in order to draw the attention of the opponent away from the true play that is about to take place. Now, this technique is particularly effective when you're attempting to deceive the opponent's senses by changing their attention away from the user, allowing them to move out of sight. Kuroko behaves as if he's not about to receive the ball, and that diverts the opponent's attention away from him because he focuses their attention on the ball. This skill was important, and it was quite literally the main spamming ult in his game, word to Marvel rivals, and none of his techniques would be nearly as effective without him having the base skill of misdirection. The thing that makes misdirection so specific to Kuroko is the fact that it's not a signature move that any star can truly learn. That's why he was known as the Phantom Sixth Man, because his energy just in general made him a bland person. He was just, quote, a guy. And because of that, he was able to make use of his lack of sheer aura and skill with the ability to draw people's attention away from him. At number 8, we have the Vanishing Drive, also by Kuroko. Now, it creates an optical illusion that deceives opponents by making the ball seem like it disappears, quote unquote. Now, his ability of misdirection is quite literally the thing that enables him to use the Vanishing Drive. It's almost like an overloaded version of that. It's just souped up to a different degree because the ball is again, in his hands this time. This only works when Kagami initially distracts the opponent, which makes the person guarding Kuroko think that Kagami is going to be the most likely to make a move, or he is the person about to receive the ball. This therefore creates the room for Kuroko to take the ball through while their senses are dulled and they're mildly distracted. Now, because Kuroko is so short and has a very wiry frame, he's able to dip down to a very low angle, and when he drops his shoulder, it's very hard for the opponent to follow him, even if they are slightly faster than him or quicker than him. And by the time they realize what happened, he's already behind them and attacking the basket. This ability, when combined with the Phantom Shot, helped him to take his game to the next level because he was a more than viable offensive threat at that point. The Vanishing Drive was proven so successful that even the most talented of players in the show, Generation of Miracles shooter, ace shooter, Midorima, and against Takao's Hawkeye, it still ended up defeating them. It was only against Aomine that things were completely shut down. And though it's not necessarily the most undefeatable thing in the game, it's definitely an effective move that can be used in real life, and it looks very impressive. You just have to have the proper tools and players on the court to make it happen. Number 7, and this one you could argue isn't necessarily an ability and is more so the most realistic one out of them all. It's Animal Instinct, and this is first seen with Kagami because it's like a sixth sense that allows players to anticipate their opponent's movements before they even make them, or just understand the overall scope of the situation and anticipate what is likely to potentially occur. This means that the heightened sense of awareness lets you react significantly quicker than you would at any other point in the game, based off of the information that they get from their senses to stay that extra step ahead. It's not something that can so much be learned or taught, it's an experience. It's not something that you can pick up out of a textbook or can be explained to you. It just kind of happens. Now, Kagami's animal instinct is portrayed as a tiger, which is arguably the most ferocious out of all of them. Aomine's is described as a panther, which enhances his 5 senses, obviously making his reflexes and top speed already that were impressive even more godlike. And Hayama's is likened to that of a cheetah, which obviously as well increases his overall physical ability. Number 6 is a very interesting one because it was most likely seen in the NBA by only the largest and most dominant players in the league, i.e. the Shaquille O'Neals of the world, and it's Thor's hammer. It's something about a man that can just stand there off 2 feet offer and turn his back and put the ball down on the top of somebody's head that just really gets my engine going. And that's exactly what Atsushi Murasakibara's trademark bag move was. He leaps extremely high in the air, turns literally 180 degrees midair, and then slams the ball down with 2 hands with absolutely demonic levels of ferocity. It doesn't matter how good of a defender you are because almost nobody could withstand this move. There was a point where even Kiyoshi and Kagami attempted to contest him and he was just simply too strong. In the show, it was actually so crazy because he ends up doing it against Seirin at one particular point, and when he dunks, he produced so much insane air and aura that it was strong enough to knock 3 people over onto the floor. But again, this move is only effective and only matters because Murasakibara is quite literally the giant monster of the basketball court in every game that he plays. Number 5 is when things kind of get a little bit finicky because it's not necessarily a singular person's ability, it's more of a group effort. However, it's started by one man, and that man is Seijiro Akashi. Now, his second ability, that's the one that we're going to talk about right here, it's called Perfect Rhythmed Plays, and it's almost on par with his own Emperor's Eye. However, with a complete view of the court, he can accurately assess the situation and properly put the ball where it needs to go, whether it be his own shot or to his teammates. And his ability to set up these elite plays makes a insane rhythm that brings out the best in his teammates because there's no way that they will fail under his leadership. While the other Akashi was capable of entering the zone and exhibiting his control over the court, the true Akashi is able to use his impeccable passing to heighten his allies' plays and bring them to a similar level of being in the zone even when they're not themselves. The 4th one on this list is going to be one that isn't necessarily from the Generation of Miracles, and it actually popped out in the last game movie where they played the International Jabberwock squad, but I still think that it was an insane ability nevertheless, and that's why I had to throw it on this list. And it's called Demon Eye Gold. Now, the Demon Eye allows for users to see through their opponent's strategies and anticipate their next move. With this heightened level of awareness, the players can outmaneuver their opponents, giving the user a strategic edge. This power can be used to gain an insane level of understanding over the game to create even better strategies than what are naturally available to them. Now, it's comparable to Akashi's Emperor's Eye, and it's better for sure than Izuki's Eagle Eye and Kuroko's Quasi-Emperor Eye, as well as Takao's Hawkeye. Now, this ability was used by Nash Gold Jr., who I guess was supposed to be a play on Steve Nash. Now, he can use this ability to make passes the moment he assumes and predicts that his teammate should be available to receive it or should be mildly uncontested if they were to take a shot. And without having to look at his target, it makes this ability even more OP. This ability alone makes him a league's better opponent, even if his actual natural scoring skills were a little bit subpar. At 3, we have the complete Emperor's Eye. Not just the Emperor's Eye, no. The complete Emperor's Eye. It's another skill in Akashi's arsenal. Now, it depends heavily on his abilities of observation, because by looking at a player's movements, including the way they're breathing, the tension that they're showing, the tempo that they're playing with, and how much they're sweating, and beyond that, he can tell what move they are most likely to end up taking. In his entire life, he was bred and understood that being nearly perfect was the only way to succeed in life. So early on, back in middle school when he was with the Teiko team, he honed his Emperor's Eye ability by studying everybody relentlessly. And now he uses it as this basis and the foundation for all of the other skills that he has in his bag. And I would potentially argue that playing against Akashi would be the worst possible opponent for somebody like me, because I play basketball really cerebrally. So seeing somebody that could potentially understand exactly what my next move is, and every single time he makes the correct play and not the ego play, would absolutely mortify. Moving on to number 2, we have the ability of Kisei, who I arguably would say is the most skilled out of the entire generation of miracles, because he can take everybody's bag work and make it his own. And that ability is called Perfect Copy. Now, it's an exclusive skill belonging to him and only him. And because he's one of the generation of miracles, you know it's tough. Using this ability, he can copy any player's ability perfectly. And if that other player is not executing them to the top tier ability that they could, he can execute it even better. It's important to remember that at the beginning of the show, he was able to copy the abilities of guys like Takao and other players that were mid-tier to upper echelon players in the game, but not players of the generation of miracles. And it was widely believed that he would never be able to copy any of them. However, eventually, with much hard work and determination, he was able to perfectly copy the moves of players of Aomine specifically, which made for one of the most insane games of the series against Toho, and then of course activating his own version of the Emperor's Eye that Akashi has. And if there wasn't another level that I wanted to take this to, I would say that Perfect Copy is quite literally the best skill in Kuroko's basketball. But there's one that goes even above that, and that is the zone. The zone is a state that allows players to realize their complete potential despite any previous or current limitations that may be held on the body. It's only accessible to players that are necessarily prodigies or have an immense passion for basketball. With the exception of Kagami, obviously, who was able to forcefully gain access to the zone, the Generation of Miracles are the only other players that were shown to have the ability to enter. Now, it's also important to remember that Murasaki Bara was previously believed to not love the game of basketball, however, still managed to enter the zone later on in the game between Seirin and Yosen because he quite literally refused to lose to Kuroko. Now, in the show, there's 2 doors. Now, Kagami recognized that the first level is for those that demonstrate an extreme love or passion for basketball, but the second door only opens because of the power of friendship, and that zone comes with the mutual trust shared by teammates when their eyes met Kagami's at the very end of the show. And it was kind of like a game-breaking ability, and in many ways you could argue that the zone is something that in real life is the most realistic ability out of them all. I would say that Animal Instinct is a little bit more realistic because there's certain guys that you will come across where it just doesn't seem to make sense that they know what to do when they do it, or that they're able to execute specific plays in ways that honestly nobody should be able to do. However, the zone is just one of those things, and nowadays we call it the flow state at times, where you do something something that just felt so natural in the moment, and everybody looks at you in awe. But when you attempt to reactivate that ability, you can't pull it off the same way you did in that one particular instance. But if you made it this far in the video, smash that like button, subscribe, turn on post notifications, and consider becoming a member of the channel to get the videos faster than anybody else and help support the content. We have more Kuroko's basketball bangers on the way, and we will be breaking down the actual games and how crazy they were next. And as always, AYC, what you got for me?
Your theme is peace.
Ah!